Whatever, ngaju tado any Clinton Walker da, ngalo mamayaga, ngana ejala melba da noro, ngalo madando ngora, mora jogongo, waba mago, ngana na noro ngoranga, ngaju tado ngora, juran moldango, mailing ngora, ejala ngana na wanga benyargo, waba mago, wabarne. Ready Thanks. For a yarn, mate? Yeah, people love it. And I didn't realise how much of Australians especially had an appetite for this sort of thing. Because, a lot of people realise that they never grew up understanding Aboriginal culture. You live with Aboriginal people. You live on a country that was Aboriginal people's country, with songlines going back tens of thousands of years and sacred sites, etc. But people never saw it. They lived in a bubble.
G'day, my name's Anthony James, this is the Regeneration, and that was Nyalama man Clinton Walker, traditional custodian of the incredible Murujuga, or Burrup Peninsula, on the northwest coast of Australia. You might recall my conversations with archaeologist Peter Veth and the co-authors of Songlines, Lynn Kelly and Margot Neal, last year. They all related back to this place, where the songlines start, as Clinton puts it. So at the end of last year, as my family and I headed south from the Kimberley, Clinton and I met up to record a yarn for the Clean State podcast, the spin-off series from the Regeneration specific to my home state of Western Australia. Some of you may have had a listen. It's a shorter, snappier format, but on this particular hot summer morning, with so much at stake here right now, and so much to appreciate about what he's up to, Clinton and I settled in for an extended chat. So here's the rest of what we recorded together. I've patched in my intro from the Clean State podcast here first to help set the scene for you. Murujuga, on the northwest coast of Australia, houses the largest rock art collection in the world. Around 1 million petroglyphs, some dating back about 40,000 years. The World Heritage nomination for this place is a shoo-in, unless it's jeopardised by current industry expansion plans. Most notoriously, the Scarborough gas field proposal, currently being challenged in court and elsewhere, with the stakes running far beyond this incredible ancient place. But there are better ways to go about things here, and traditional custodian Clinton Walker is uniquely placed to say. He was a highly paid technician with one of the mining companies here, but he ultimately couldn't bear the harm it was causing his country. He now runs an extremely successful tour operation called Naranga Tours, and is living the message that sustainable industries such as Indigenous cultural tourism are enormously beneficial, economically, for country, and for bringing our cultures together. So join us as Clinton sits us down on a very special part of his country for that yarn.
Yeah, so hello and welcome to Ngarluma country. My name's Clinton Walker, I'm a Ngarluma man. My family on my grandfather's side come from the Sherlock River, but I've also got strong connections to this side of the country where we're currently residing in Murujuga, known as the Burrup Peninsula in English. Hip bone sticking out in my language, Ngarluma language.
Thanks, Clinton. It's terrific to be with you here, and thanks for having me on country, and thanks for meeting me here. Let's bring listeners into exactly where we are, and we'll tell a bit of the story of this place. But yeah, where are we, and why is it special to you?
So this area, known as Binabarana in the Ngarluma language, but it's been known as Hearson's Cove for the last 150 odd years. It's actually a very spiritual location within a significantly spiritual place itself. But right where we're sitting, actually, like for the listeners, we're right on the coast. Yeah, it's pretty much a beach it's littered with shells, basically. It's just millions and billions of shells here, old coral, all that type of stuff. So, and we're just watching a little wallaby hopping up on the rocks right now.
Beautiful.
So it's an amazing place, and I've been coming here for years. Since I was a young fella, with my family, my uncle and auntie, cousins. And we used to camp here, we used to come here. None of this road that we drove on that used to be there, it's just like a little dirt track where we're sitting now under this shade with these bench seats. None of this was here. It's just all proper bush, and beach. And we'd camp here, go fishing, catching different things, turtles and fish and mud crabs. And my uncle, he'd teach us all about this area, and he'd show us the rock art that's around here. And I remember when I was young, I used to see how my uncle was, the type of things he used to do, what he used to talk about, and how he used to show people, non-Indigenous, including royalty, like literally the Prince and the Queen.
Really?
Yeah, Charles and his mum around here, and I remember being out here when he was doing that back in the early 90s. I was like, I don't know, 10 years old or something. And yeah, I remember being inspired by this man who I thought was, one of the greatest people I ever knew. Late uncle, known as DD, not supposed to say his name, but his Aboriginal name is Warndamayaga, which means woodman. He was an amazing wood carver. He used to make a lot of different Aboriginal artefacts out of wood. But he knew the country so well and all the stories, and he spent a lot of time with the elders, taking us as young people out, teaching us, our country and our culture. And that was an inspiration for me, to the point where I decided I wanted to do what my uncle did, and now that's what I do. I take people out and I show them the same things I was shown. Yeah.
Let's tell some of the bigger story of Murujuga, because as you said in your own stuff and material I've had a look at, still not many people know this place and what's here in Australia, let alone further abroad.
Yeah. So some people may already know what songlines are, but basically I'll go into that a little, because that'll help explain this area. But a songline is a series of songs that tell a story. And a lot of people heard about Dreamtime stories, but what they don't realise is those stories have songs as well. And these songs, basically they sing about the story, but they connect the story to landmarks. And Murujuga, from a songline perspective, is the beginning point, is where a lot of songlines begin, that start here, that end up on the other side of Australia. And so as a place of significance, it's one of the most important sites in Australia from a cultural perspective, Dreamtime perspective. But not only that, because we have all those songlines that begin here, those stories need to be told in other formats. And so the format that was chosen was petroglyphs or rock carvings, known as, a lot of people say rock art. And there's so many out here. It's crazy how much is out here. Over 1 million. I mean, I've seen a lot and still haven't scratched the surface, I've lived here my whole life, I'll be 40 next year, so in that almost 40 years I've lived here, 30 odd of those years are spent in this area learning about it all, Yeah, just when I take people out and show them, it's unbelievable for a lot of people. And then you tell them the age of some things. So we've got rock art that's, they made 100 years ago or so. That's the youngest. People think 100 years is old, but in the scheme of things, it's really young, especially when it comes to this rock art.
Yeah. No, in a way, it's the fact that it's still been going. It's the interesting thing about that.
Yeah.
It didn't stop when Europeans got here.
Yeah, that's right. And with the age of them, we've got, rock art that's, about 100 years old, and then you go up from there. Then you start hitting 1,000 or 500 to 1,000. Then you start hitting a couple of thousand. And the next minute you're in your tens of thousands. So you've got rock art that would have been made around 7,000 to 10,000 years ago. And that's when we had one of the biggest climate events in history of the world. And that was the rising of the sea levels, which inspired many stories across the world to do with great floods. Some people are aware of Noah's Ark. Well, Ngarluma people and many other Aboriginal people also have a flood story that coincides with that same time. And scientists now have been, doing lots of studies, and they reckon it happened between that period that I said. But the rock art, when you see the rock art that's to do with that flood event, you'll get carvings of, say, a kangaroo or an emu or something that's a land-based animal that people were hunting on the land. And then all of a sudden this water started coming in and flooding the country where people once lived. And their diet had to change because the landscape changed. So they weren't just eating kangaroo and emu anymore. They started eating turtles, dugong, mud crab, all the different fish species, barramundi, etc. And so they carved these animals over the top of those kangaroos or those emus or whatever to note the changes in the landscape, in the environment. And so when I tell people this was like 10,000 years ago, and that is mind-blowing enough for them. Because when you go and, when you look at the rock art and you tell them, yeah, all this water, like where we're sitting now, it used to be 150 k's away, this coastline. They're like, what? It's like, like my ancestors lived out there once upon a time,
And that Australia, well, as we know it today, was like a third bigger or something.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, already huge, but, But yeah, it was literally about a third larger, and people find it so difficult to comprehend, especially that are from overseas, let alone Australia, because they're like, they can't trace their ancestry back even a couple of hundred years. Yet I can tell you what my ancestors were doing 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
They were getting ready for some great big changes. And then we can tell you even further back from there. We can go back 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 years. I can tell you my history. And that's the connection we have to this place as traditional owners.
No, it does. For a Westerner, it boggles the mind a bit that those stories are mapped out in country like that and last through those changes. And that's a huge story in itself, isn't it? That the cultures are shifted with those massive, when we talk about sea level changes today and climate changes today, I mean 100 metres plus sea level change.
Yeah.
This has been navigated by human cultures before.
Yes.
And the stories are here for us to read, if you like.
Yeah, and people are like, I hear all this stuff today about climate change, and a lot of people are either for it or against it, or some people think it's just a conspiracy theory or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, climate change is real. It's happened many times throughout history. We've all adapted to it as human beings. The difference is my people haven't forgotten about it. We've kept that alive the entire time we've been here. I get asked a lot of different questions, but one of the questions I do get asked is that, did your people war with each other? And I tell them no, not like in other countries. We had skirmishes, people fought, it's human nature. But in order for us to have rock art that goes backwards in time and the stability that we've had to stay here and carry those songlines and share it with other peoples right across the nation, that means we didn't fight with one another very often. I think life was too cruisy, to be honest.
Well, this is some of what we're learning. And about Indigenous cultures globally too, that the idea of a day where you work all day wasn't part of the thing. I mean, this is how the art ended up here. It wasn't working all day.
No. Rock art was done, like basically people's work, their daily activity, especially at this time of year in the summer, where it's like 45 degrees or 46 or whatever, mid to late 40s, nobody's doing anything during the day. You go and lay under a tree like a kangaroo and just stay there all day until it cools down, Those Spanish never invented the siesta. Aboriginal people did.
So, speaking of navigating big changes, Europeans arrive.
Yep.
We've got these places like Burrup Peninsula, the English name, as you mentioned before, for this place. And it was actually an island.
Yes.
It's only been, 60 years or something that Europeans decided to fill it in and pave it.
Yeah, so it's been an island for thousands of years. Before that, it was a range. But yeah, it has been an island, and it wasn't until Rio today, but Dampier Salt back in the day, decided they wanted to build a salt pond so they could extract salt from the ocean and sell it as like a package with the iron ore. And they changed the landscape. They turned what was an island into a peninsula. And it's named after this Burrup. I'm pretty sure his name was James, but don't quote me on that. You'll have to go and have a look. We could
Wikipedia that one.
Yeah,
That's
we
right.
could probably Google it right now. this guy, he was a teller or a banker or something in Robe, and him and a few others, they were murdered. And no money or anything was taken. It was really like suspicious. Like there was no reason they should be dead, really. But anyways, so he was one of these guys that were killed. So they named this place after him. But like I said, it's known as Murajuga to my people, to all the Aboriginal people right across the Pilbara, all the way to Uluru. You know, a lot of people know about this place. And Murajuga means hip bone sticking out. And it's because we've got this Nickel Bay area, and that peninsula part of it and some of the islands, they poke out in that sort of northeast direction, pretty much northeast. And the way that they're shaped, it looks like, if you were looking at it from above, it looks like a hip bone, specifically a woman's hip bone.
Such a feature, isn't it, of a lot of the artwork too that we know today, that there was aerial view at play without drones.
Yeah, without drones and airplanes and everything else.
That's right.
And that hip bone sticking out name, looking at it from like as a woman's body part, like if you look at a woman's hips, they're for childbirth. You know, that's the way they're shaped, and which means women are creators. They create life. So this as a place is a creation place, and that means from a Dreamtime perspective, we believe that everything started here, and that's why the songlines start here. And the songlines, they're mapped out, right? And humans today keep that mapping alive by practicing our law and culture, going out, singing the songs, putting boys through initiation, and in other places women go through that, and that initiation process teaches those young people the songs, and as they get older and they learn the songs more and more, they start to understand what the songs are about, and that you're not just singing about your own country, you're singing about other places that is someone else's land where other people are from, you know, and that's the connection we have with one another. But as a place itself, Murajuga, it's the birthplace of our creation beings. It's where they came from. It's where we believe they created the earth, and then they created the rock art, the original rock art, which was a tool to teach us how to preserve and record our history. And then they passed everything on to us, and then they left. They went up into the heavens and gave us a few rules to live by, you know, be kind, all this type of stuff, you know, like your 10 Commandments kind of thing. Look after one another, but the main things was look after the land, look after each other, and look after all the things within the land. You do all that stuff, you can come and join us up in heaven, basically. You know.
And you ended up going through these processes yourself as a young fella.
Yeah, yep. I've been initiated, and you know, we call it law time, and there's throughout my life I've gone out and I've, you know, followed my law really, really, really strongly. But then some years, like when I was working on mining and stuff, and what would happen is everyone else gets their time off at the end of the year, or, you know, they go on leave and they go on a holiday or something.
Yeah.
Wasn't the case for me. I'd go on leave, I'd spend some time with my family, but I'd mostly go out and I'd follow my law and learn about, you know, my history and my culture. And I used to do that for like a lot. And then I was like, you know, I need a little break for myself and my family and take them on a holiday. So I started doing a few holidaying things, a couple of years here and there, you know, just skip a couple of years from the law, but I'd always go back. And this thing of following the law is what the elders call it, what we're taught is following the law is so important to us as a society, because it teaches us our connection to our land, where we're from, our history, gives us our identity as a people, but also it helps us to connect to our neighbouring groups and how we're all connected to them through these songlines. So like we might be singing about a place in a songline that, you know, that we're taught, that we have to teach young people. But that song might be about Uluru or Burngara, you know, Mount Augustus or something like that. It's not our country, it's not where we're from. And singing about those places, understanding the story of those particular sites where these songs take you is so important. And then because you know about that place and you know that song, and we're saying know the song, know the country, it makes you want to go and see that place. But you know that if you want to go there, you can't just go there just nilly-willy. You've got to go and seek permission from the traditional owners of that area. And because you also know that where you're from, you know your country, you know that songline, you know that story, you know that hill, you know what's good, what's dangerous, etc., etc. So when you go on someone else's land, you know those same things that you know that apply to where you're from must also apply there. So you know that you can't just go here and there and wherever. So you understand that in order to access that place belonging to those people, you have to ask for permission for starters, and then they'll take you out and they'll show you all the same things you would do with anybody else in your country. And that was the thing that Aboriginal people right across Australia practice, is first of all looking after country, learning the songlines, the stories, taking care of each other in different ways, and also making sure people following the rules. But part of life was also leaving home and following songlines and learning those songlines. You already know the song, but you don't know the country. So you got to go see the place in order to understand the story more, understand the song more, you know? You can't just stay in one place. And by doing that, you become more knowledgeable, more experienced, and then you get to know your neighbours better, so you have a better relationship with other people. And once you do that, you don't want to fight them. You respect each other, you know?
Yeah, it's huge how that's just embedded in the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's and so what I was talking about, that we never warred with one another and all that type of stuff, and why we have such a strong connection to our rock art, etc., is because we've got a good relationship with other people, and that we share all this knowledge with each other, and that people don't want to jeopardize that. You know, they don't want to have a bad relationship with someone because it could mean that they can no longer access that place and learn about those stories. That's how important country is to Aboriginal people and songlines.
And right now, there's a World Heritage application for this place. Do you know where it's at?
It's gone to the national level. So how it works is people have to apply for it. The area has to apply for World Heritage listing. Gets on the tentative list, so it goes to state level. State government basically approves, then they have to carry it forward to the national level, so federal government then has to then put that forward to UNESCO. So that's where it's at the moment. And then UNESCO then decide whether the place, according to a list, long list of things, items, whether the place is worthy of being in the World Heritage listing. And so some of the things that are part of the list, the tick of approvals, is, you know, the impact of modern things on, you know, this ancient stuff. So right now we've got all these gas plants built out here and mining facilities, and the state government wants to build more. You know, they want another fertiliser plant out here and all this sort of stuff. And that could jeopardise us gaining World Heritage listing, which is something that should have happened 20 to 30 years ago, you know?
Oh, it's as much of a gimme as any application that's ever been, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unless something gets in the way of
Yep.
it's like that.
Yep. And so that's one of the things that we're worried about, is that more industry being built is going to jeopardise our application. And honestly, if we gain World Heritage listing, I'll be so happy that people will finally know about this place and how important it is. You know, in terms of the significance of Murujuga, there's a lot of sacred sites in Australia, a lot of very, very sacred sites. The most well-known is Uluru. But Uluru's stories, part of their songlines, come from here, you know?
But yeah, as you said, there are other agendas at play here. And you know these agendas because you used to work for one of the mining companies, and you still do cultural awareness stuff for these companies.
Yeah.
So you're well placed to be coming at this without demonising anyone. And you're keen to do that. You're always keen to make that clear.
Yeah.
But let's start with that personal perspective. What your overall thoughts are on the current ideas to expand the gas processing plant, explore another field offshore, Scarborough gas project, and the fertiliser plant and so forth. How would you describe your overall position on that in summary?
What they're currently proposing, I'm against it because I know that they want to expand here in Murujuga. And like I said, more expansion is going to jeopardise World Heritage listing, which will offer more protection, more employment because it'll boost tourism, etc., etc. Also, the emissions that they'll be pumping out as part of it, has potential to damage the rock art over a period of time. Over 100 years, we could actually see it all disappear.
And that's aside from the greenhouse effect. That's just direct impact
Yep.
of the chemicals and so forth that are emitted.
And that's my main concern, because this stuff has lasted tens of thousands of years. And to think that it could disappear in 100 years, that has me really worried. And I'm not against what they want to do, I just don't want it here. And we've got this agreement called the BIMIA, which was written up by the state government, the Burrup Maitland Industrial Estate Agreement, which states that they want to be able to build things in Murujuga, which they've done, but also there's an area called the Maitland Estate that they can expand into. So that's the thing that I want to see is, rather than continue building here, go to the Maitland Estate where there's little to no Aboriginal rock art or any other types of sacred. So there's stuff out there, but it's not like Murujuga. So the impact is going to be a lot more minimal.
So where is that? Is that a bit further south?
It's about sort of 10 to 15 k's just sort of west of Karratha.
And why aren't they doing that?
They reckon it's going to cost more money. But the gas pipeline, so this Perdaman who wants to build their fertiliser plant, say they need access to the gas. Well, guess what? They've got a gas pipeline that goes from Dampier to Bunbury. And there's already gas plants built on those gas pipelines, right on them. And so Perdaman, if they want to, they could build where those other guys already are. And then they're like, oh, but we want to be able to, pump it out and put it on to the ships. Well, Yarra already has that facility. Why don't you just borrow it off them or build one alongside the existing one that they've got and just expand it from here to Maitland? It's going to cost a little bit extra money, but you're going to make it back over time. And most likely government is going to give them a bit of incentive anyways if they do that, because it's going to create jobs for Australians, for West Australians.
Let alone then, of course, the benefits economically as much as culturally of World Heritage. So the state government's in a position where it's win-win if they can get this set up right.
It's not going to affect anybody, really. In fact, they'll all still benefit from it.
And then there's the International Energy Agency saying we should be building no more fossil fuel gas and oil plants, certainly coal mines, etc. How much does that play on your mind within this as well?
Well, if we have the option to switch to renewable energies and stop relying on fossil fuels, then I think we as a society need to do it. And I saw a list of, like the top 50 countries that, that use fossil fuels. Australia is basically number one or number two or something as a country that utilises fossil fuels. It's crazy. We talk about Australia being one of the most modern countries in the world, one of the greatest countries in the world. We've got such a good economy, this and that. We suck at utilising new technologies.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Well, now we do. I mean, in the past, you perhaps say we were good at it.
Yeah.
But we're stuck on the ones we've got, the incumbents. Even Bill Hare, highly respected bloke, said, even gas will be stranded assets within a decade.
Yeah.
Like, we're moving away from this stuff really fast. So to think we'd sink again and jeopardise this into those technologies when we don't have to. I mean, we are sitting here on the brightest sunny day and we know the wind's going to howl later, let alone the hydrogen stuff that's been talked about a lot, etc.
And we've got massive tidal movements.
It's almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
And that's to say, again, I mean, that's just sort of surface level in a sense, to say nothing of the cultural aspects that we've talked about already that run so deep. Let's zero in on a bit of your experience as an example of next economy opportunities, if you like, that are coming off well. But let's go to the start. So you're working with one of the mining companies and you've hit a point one day where you think, actually, thinking of your uncle, I'm imagining, and what's been invested in you, you thought, I'm going to head out and do what he did.
Yeah. So I was actually working for Woodside at the time. But it was in that time, Woodside wanted to build a gas plant out at James Price Point.
The Browse Field.
Yep. Which I knew, because I'd spent time growing up that way, because my poppy was from Beagle Bay, and we used to go up around that country when I was a young fella. So I knew it was sacred places. And then they wanted to build the site, right? And they had all these negotiations with traditional, and it caused all the problems that we face here in the Pilbara. But the biggest thing for me was that they wanted to build this plant straight over the top of a songline, which they'd done here. And it made me realise, like, I can't work for these industries anymore and get paid by them and support these things, which I'm against. It goes against what I've been taught. And so I just decided that I'll start my own business. So I started delivering cultural events while I was working for Woodside as more or less a side business. But I just wanted to get the education out there to teach people about the significance of Aboriginal culture and sites and so forth. And when I was doing that, people really, really enjoyed it. They learnt lots, to the point where they said, I would love to do more of this stuff outside the classroom, more on-country stuff, And then I was like, well, let's do it. I'll take people out on country. So I developed a tourism business, and I've been doing it ever since.
Did you get much support, or you just sort of went and did it?
The cultural awareness that I was delivering at the time was pretty lucrative. I was actually making a fair bit of money from it, and that helped. But I did have good support from our community organisations. So like our Aboriginal organisations, they gave us startup funds and all that, and supported the business. So they were really great at helping us out, because they could see the benefit too, because they've got these agreements with the companies, and they need them to understand us and me and a couple of others, my sister and that, were doing that. We were out there showcasing Ngarluma heritage and Injimari heritage, We were getting lots of good support.
Because that's what I hear a bit, that plenty try but fail if they don't have that support.
Yeah.
So that seems important.
Yep. So overall, the community supported what we were doing, and then the general community and these mining companies, etc., were very supportive of what we were delivering, and then the tours just got more and more popular. People who were travelling through the area wouldn't normally stop in Karratha, and because of the cost of living here, the accommodation, etc., etc. But then they started to find out there's an Aboriginal fella going out, taking people, showing them rock artists, and then more and more people started to hit us up, and they'd come on a tour, and then they'd tell their friends about it, and people that they're meeting as they're travelling, and so more and more people started to come, and word of mouth was really selling my business for me,
Yeah, you have. So you were the first?
I'm not the first, but I'm pretty much the first TO tour company, traditional owner tour company that was doing rock art tours. There were people doing it before me, and non-Indigenous, and my uncle and that, but he wasn't actually doing it as a business.
Yeah.
But he was just taking people out. And there was an Aboriginal fellow who had a tour company, but his family was from the Kimberley, but he was based here, married into the area, and he was doing some good stuff too. So yeah, I saw the potential of what's here, and that people want to know about this stuff, and they did, and then they just kept coming every year, coming back, and it got to the point where I was doing so well at doing the tours that I started winning awards, applying for awards, and just kept winning lots of awards, lots of gold, and then my name just started getting out there in the industry. And now, everyone wants to know me,
Yeah, because you're a Hall of Famer now.
Yeah.
What is that? That's
yeah, I am. I'm in the Hall of Fame of tourism. which is amazing because I'd come from a mining background, you know, in my working background. But like I said, look, I grew up with such a rich culture, and I think people could see my passion when I tell it. That they just really enjoyed it. And like I've got a cousin who works for me. He does, you know, Vince, the same guy who helped me we found the rock art together. Like he's working for me now, and I got my nephew and a couple others who come and work for me occasionally, you know. But there are people out there who see what I do and they want to come and they want to work for me. Just even if it's on the weekends or on their days off. You know, I got a lot of family who work in the mining, but they love their culture. They want to come and help out, you know, on their swings, you know, and just to get out on country. Because that's all I do. I just take people out and do the things I would normally do anyways. You know, like we go camping. Like I'll take people mud crabbing and stuff. Yeah, just teach them the things like I would, you know, do with my kids or you know, I got grandkids, you know. So the same stuff that I would do on an ordinary basis is what people experience when they come with me. So they get a full authentic experience of what Clinton Walker does on a day-to-day basis, you know.
Yeah, so what effect does it have on them?
Yeah, people love it. And I didn't realise how much of Australians especially had an appetite for this sort of thing. Because, you know, a lot of people realise that they never grew up understanding Aboriginal culture. You live with Aboriginal people. You live on a country that was Aboriginal people's country, with songlines going back tens of thousands of years and sacred sites, etc. But people never saw it. They lived in a bubble, on a suburb somewhere, where they didn't get to see none of this, you know, and never had exposure to any Indigenous people, you know, around them. Maybe a few here and there did, but the majority didn't, you know. And so people were coming up and then they start to realise, oh, we didn't even know you could find bush tucker. Like right where we are now, like if people were sitting here, you could describe the area if you wanted, but it's just like a little car park area, barbies and stuff, beach behind us, and we've got some rocky outcrop just sort of there. But right where we are, there's bush potatoes, there's lemongrass, there's berries over there, you know, there's different things over here, wattle seeds and stuff, like bush onions over there, and herbs and spices on this side to my right. You know, like there's tucker all around us. And if we go in the water, there's even more, you know.
Is that to say there's also... I was just speaking to people in the Kimberley who have developed businesses in wild harvesting, like native bush products, basically. Yeah. Is that to say there's opportunities for that here too?
Absolutely. You know, like I can't do everything.
That's right.
I'm happy enough doing what I do, but there's opportunities for, you know, my family, extended family, if they want to get into wild harvesting and all that type of stuff. There's a market there for it already.
Yeah.
And I've met people, chefs especially, who just want this stuff. They love it because the best part of it, it's actually uniquely Australian. You know, these foods you won't find anywhere else in the world. You know, the things that we get here, like wattle seeds. Our green and gold colours in the Olympics is a wattle. You know, it grows everywhere in Australia. And they all produce the wattle seed. But there's so many thousands of varieties of wattle seed, you know what I mean? Which means that each has their own distinct flavour. So just imagine if you're a chef and you're like, I want to try every single wattle seed that I possibly can, you know, and add that to my cooking.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, not like you can find that anywhere else except in Australia. Yeah, so things like that.
In the one hand, you've got this swathe of economic possibilities, but they're all built on culture. So you've got the potential to bring cultures together, to heal intergenerational traumas, and I mean all cultures as well. Like it's just present everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's the greatest thing about what I do now is the healing aspect for both sides, because now people come see us and we're telling our story. Aboriginal people across Australia, I think in the majority, has had their stories suppressed. And because of that, people became untrusting, unhappy, not unhappy, but angry towards the greater society, towards government especially. And when people come on tours, you get to be yourself, you get to show who you are, and these people, your neighbours, for example, like, you know, other Australians, come on, and then they start to learn their own history of the country that they call home, which they never knew. and then they see it from the people who are the custodians, the true people of the land, and it closes that gap that the two groups had, and so more and more people do. For every one person I take out, they've got a network of people who they talk to. So that message then gets across to that network, and then that network has a network, and so on. And so it's spreading the word right across, and that's why I was so successful in my business, because of word of mouth. Just from word of mouth alone. I had hardly any money, but hardly any marketing or anything. And I think the biggest thing that made it really good for me was social media.
Really?
Yeah, because like photography is my hobby. I've always loved photography. I think we've got such an amazing landscape here that you chuck a camera in front of it, and it's like, it's hard not to capture it. But
It's true.
But I'm actually very good at it. I'm very good at it, And a lot of people love my photos, and I get random people come up to me. Oh, you take all those nice photos, don't you? Like,
there you go.
Yeah, it's like, or they know me from my tours. But some people just know me from my photos. That social media part of it has enabled people to see what I'm doing, where I'm going, and my following's just, like, I don't have the biggest following, but I've got a lot of followers, and people see, like, when they're here in the tourist season, they see it firsthand. But you get a lot of people who don't, So the social media is a way for them to like keep up to date kind of thing. And people, like, they tell me all the time, but they're like, man, I've learned more from listening to you on social media and seeing things you post than I've ever in my entire life in my education. It's like that's crazy.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Like that. For starters, that you can't learn that in school.
Yeah.
Generally.
Still.
Yeah. But it's also great to see that people have a way now that they can do.
Yeah.
Can learn, And I've actually, I feel like I'm responsible now. I've got a responsibility as an educator, teaching about Aboriginal culture and country, and I like, it's Aboriginal culture, but it's also Australian culture, and it's just that Australia has to come on board with it now, and people are wanting to, and that's what I tell people. It's like, this rock art just doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to all of us. It's not just like it's my ancestors who made it, but we all live here now. We all got to look after it.
Yeah, just for the record, mate, I find that incredibly moving to hear. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I know it's true, but I still find it incredibly moving to have that sort of welcoming, I suppose, and that invitation in. It also struck me that the Chamber of Commerce in WA is also frustrated with the lack of diversification of Western Australia's economy from mining.
Yes.
They're also saying it's too all eggs in one basket.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's costing other opportunities. It's squeezing out
Yes.
other opportunities. And this is sort of just one case in point. But it's interesting, again, to think the divides that we might think are commonplace. Actually, there's no divide there. We all want a more enabled small business, if you like, based economy across the state to go with the mining, but with the mining in its appropriate place, and doing things we need today, like renewable energy and so forth. Yeah,
there's so many things that people could be doing business-wise that they could be starting, and you see a lot of small business here in Karratha. Actually, it's a good place for it. People are finding their own little niches in things. There's so many opportunities for it. You don't have to just do mining, but generally, it's like you might have a situation with people at home where one partner works in the mine, which gives the other partner the option to do something else. And that means they could maybe chase something that they've been dreaming of doing. And that's how I got into what I was doing too, because I'm split up now with my ex, but we were together for over 20 years. But having that support at home helped me to get my business going as well, because I left a job where I was making over 200 grand a year, and it was uncharted waters for me, I was like, man, I'm just going to give this a crack, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then at least I had to go. Yeah, that was 10 years ago. I'm still here.
And this is to say, like, when we talk about other opportunities, we talk about restoration of country too, right? Because there's such a need for that.
Yeah.
And not just for carbon back in soils and so forth, but the whole kit. We've got a highly degraded landscape, which plays into the climate story too. And have you done some ranger work too, or you know people that have been doing the ranger work?
I know a lot of the rangers.
Yeah.
I've worked with them, and they do an amazing job out here in
Yeah.
Moorooka. Like it was something that was sorely needed for this area for a long, long time. Because I was out here, and if we go back like 20 odd years now, I'd just come out of initiation, and I started my apprenticeship with Rio, and I was working out here doing my trade as a mechanic. And at that time, the elders, like, they were heavily invested in guys my age, because we're the future in terms of our culture, and so they would teach us a lot, but they realised I was probably one of only a few traditional owners working out here, and they would put the responsibility on the people like myself and say, while you're out there, keep an eye on these sites for us. Because they knew I lived in Crather, so they're like, go and check up on the rock art. So me and a few others would, But I'd just come out anyways and just go do a bit of exploring, look at all the different rock art, just have a mental note of where everything was, just for myself as well. And then while I'm out here, like, I'll just go fishing, crabbing, go hunting, because you get kangaroos out here too, so I'll just go do a bit of this, catch a goanna or something, But at the same time, I'd check up on my sacred sites, make sure that people weren't disturbing them. And some were, some people were going and they're graffitiing their names over the top of rock art.
Really?
Yeah, like scratching their names or spray painting or whatever. Spray painting is all right because it can be removed.
Yeah.
But when people scratch over it, it's permanent, like it's there for a long time. And that used to get me angry, and I was like, back at that time, I was like, we need rangers out, and we need people monitoring this place, looking after it, because it's only like a handful of us out here. And then when they started Moorooka Aboriginal Corporation and the Ranger program, I was so happy for that to go ahead, because I was like, finally, we've got people out here, we've got mob, looking after the country.
Fire must be a big part of that too, I'm imagining.
Because they were doing burn-offs and stuff as well. Because I'd look at the country and I'm like, oh, this part here needs to be burned. But I was too afraid to do it because, because you can get in trouble for it. But every so often, I'd do a burn-off.
I hear a lot of this.
Yep. But it's because it's our responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got to burn country. We've got to maintain it. And a lot of people don't understand. Like, I think in European history, fire is such a damaging thing because people were using it in warfare, and so people have really bad memories of it. But in Australia, fire is a tool that we use to maintain the land. It's like a gardening tool, basically. You clear out the land, everything grows back nice. Like some places you burn off, you get different foods come back, like bush tomatoes and things like that. Or you burn in another area, like some plants need the fire or they need the smoke to germinate, like they can't do it otherwise. So this country they call it a sunburnt land for a reason, so we got to burn it. It's part of the way of the land. And if we don't have regular fires, that's when we get the major bushfires, which we know how destructive they can be. We've seen the damage.
Well, it's happening right now, isn't it, in several parts of the country.
Yeah, and then those big fires happen because nobody's maintaining the land. Nobody's doing the burn-offs. And now, I think Australia as a society is starting to realise we need burn-offs. It's so important because, like, if you live in a foresty area, you got all that old leaves and timber and everything falling out, and it just builds up and it builds up. If you're not burning it off, you got more and more fuel just caking, and then it's unstoppable.
Yeah, There's fire and then there's fire. I mean, just listening to you talk about the nuance, like there's multifaceted things that you're tending with fire. It's like to get smoke there and flame there and don't burn there, and it's there's a cultural art to it, as distinct to some of the prescribed burning regimes, meeting quotas and so forth that get a bit big and problematic that we know of down south.
Yeah,
even up north, I think where I've just been. Yeah, which then end up just making things worse. It's not the right kind of fire.
No. I was actually on a couple of tours this year, and we've had Indigenous rangers going out and doing proper burn-offs. And as we were driving through, and like we're slowing down where the fires are, and the tourists are getting like really anxious about it. Like, no, don't worry. I said, this is a cool burn. See those mob there? They're walking amongst the fire while they're burning. And because what they're doing is a coal fire is not going to do any damage. They're not in no danger. And I said, and this is how you tell. I was showing them, It's like, see how the fire, it burns the base of the trees, but it doesn't burn the leaves. That's a cool fire. And they're watching and observing for themselves, and then they realize, oh, you're right. It's like, yeah, see? Like, you can walk along this fire, and you won't, unless you accidentally fall in it, I tell them you won't get burnt, But I say, because I showed them, like, watch those guys. Watch how they walk, where they go, and how they burn. It's like, it's not even an issue at all. Yeah. And then they realise, oh, yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, see, that's a proper fire, that's a proper burn, I said. But it's when we get the big bushfires, those are the dangerous. That's when I won't stop in that situation, Like and then they come to a realisation, like, actually, this is really important, that this stuff needs to happen, But some people need to be shown for themselves, to be able to witness it in action like they did at that time. I think it gave them a lot of good insight into why things need to be done the way they're done.
Yeah, which so it again says something about actually getting on country to see it, not just hearing about it. Yeah. There's a few legislative changes in the wings at the moment. One's a cultural heritage reform bill. I sort of can't leave this conversation without talking about a few of these things. They're so significant. And this one's really getting big on the government in the sense that they've come with something that desperately needed to happen, especially in light of Juukan Gorge and the explosion of the 46,000-year heritage site. But we know, even here, the thousands of sites that have been lost before we've got to this point here at Murujuga. So it's vital, but it's fallen short. It's still got ministerial veto rights, if you like, while those are denied to native title holders. What's your position on that?
Yeah, I think I just think they're being, in my opinion, a bit tokenistic about it all, making changes, but it's not really changes.
Seems that way.
Yeah, and if you want real change, get the Aboriginal Heritage Act and make it a carbon copy of the West Australian Heritage Act.
Really?
Yep.
What's the implication of that?
Because anything within the West Australian Heritage Act that is heritage listed, you can't touch. For example, in the southwest, in Perth itself, there's some old sewage, right, in the city, over 100 years old. And now it's been heritage listed. And in order to go and do anything to that sewage, you've got to jump through hoops after hoops after hoops.
I love that that's true for our sewer.
Yes.
But not true for here.
Yep. A sewage pipe.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Literally.
Surely we can do this.
Yes. So that sewage pipe, which we know what goes down sewage pipes,
right,
has way more protection than 40-odd thousand-year-old rock art. This is the comparison that I'm making between the two bills, the two acts, two legislation. That's the difference.
That's really interesting. And there is a massive spread of support across cultures, across industries, across fields of study that recently released an open letter to that effect. So far, no movement, but we'll hope there will be there has to be on that front. Then there's a book that just came to my attention, springing from the native title success by Paul Cleary, Title Fight. Have you come across his book yet, documenting
No,
that?
I haven't read it yet. It's got my uncle in there.
Yeah.
Michael Woodley. And, I think what he's done as a traditional owner, going against mining magnate being Andrew Forrest, you can see that that's a really big thing, that to beat them in court.
Huge.
That's massive.
Yeah.
And that's good for the people, good for country. And I fully support things like that. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to read the actual book yet, which I'm going to read anyways, because I like reading things anyways and just finding out all the details.
Yeah. Well, that's what the little I've read so far. What stands out it's really distinct from the flavour of our conversation now, where you're charting ways for people to come together, for win-win scenarios to occur, all that sort of stuff. But that Fortescue Mining and Andrew Forrest, there was so much shenanigans in what they were trying to do that just seemed so needless. It was costing them more at the same time, and of course costing a hell of a lot for the culture, trying to establish native title and everything that should mean.
Yeah.
That just seems... I'm endlessly curious about it in the sense of why bother? Why even not meet just standard industry benchmarks, which aren't that great anyway, but to even go hard to try and avoid those, I don't really understand.
Yeah. I think mining companies, these major mining companies, these are huge organisations worth billions and billions, I think they have a responsibility in their operations to go above and beyond what is the norm. And they haven't been doing that. We know that for a fact. But here's an opportunity for them now, because us as Aboriginal people in this region, ultimately our motivations and our motives and our goals is to look after country. But we understand we live in a modern day, and that these things they bring benefits to all the people, including ourselves. So it's not that we want to stop mining. We're not about stopping mining. We just don't want people destroying our sites, our heritage sites that are significant to us, that are part of our songlines. That's what matters to us. And if they can build a mine that doesn't impact on any of those things, then that's great. But I think mining companies can go above and beyond government and don't just do things for the sake of doing it or for a media release or anything like go and be genuine. I work for these companies. I work for all of them. I've worked in mining, oil and gas and construction here in the Pilbara. And I know how they all operate. I know what they're about. I've worked in different parts of organisations. So I know I've got insight, And that's, this, because they were doing this and doing that, that's why I left those companies, so I can educate more. And now they're actually seeing what I'm doing as a really positive thing, and that they're engaging me. Like Rio, after this Juukan Gorge incident, I've been engaged with them throughout the whole year, basically working with them, their employees, their management teams, and educating them, and had such really good feedback. And the people who are on the ground, like I know the education of Aboriginal culture is limited. And then they come out with us, and then they gain a really good insight into why these things are important, why what happened there was such a tragedy, and they're like, yeah, man, we want our kids to know all these things. We want them to grow up seeing these sites. It's like, yeah, that's how everyone should be in this country. And you guys work. It's not only them. It's not us and them scenario, because my family work in mining.
That's right.
I'm not against mining. Like I said, it's supporting a lot of my people. It's just that be responsible.
Yeah.
Look after country. They didn't have to blow up that site.
No, that's it. They blew it up in spite of knowing that it's the killer,
Yes.
and that's why there was such a backlash.
Yes.
Have they learned, do you reckon?
They're definitely learning.
They're in the process of...
Yep. They're in the process of learning. They understand now, I think, senior management. It's not so much...
No, that's it.
Yeah.
Decision makers.
If the decision makers are finally realising, because they're also copying it from their shareholders.
Yeah, exactly.
Shareholders are like, whoa, this is going to impact not only the shares, but just morally. They've got kids and stuff too. It's like, oh, you own a piece of a company that destroyed some of the oldest heritage on the planet, no one wants to be a part of that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you say they need to take more responsibility, that responsibility, here's, with the Cultural Heritage Reform Bill, it's an example where it could kick in, no? Where they almost give, not permission, but sort of some kind of licence to the state government to, no, you really should be giving native title holders, for example, final say on what sites need to be avoided with these activities. It seems to be an example where if they did that, I can imagine it would change things. Yeah,
well, absolutely changing, especially with their relationship with traditional owners. For example, if they knew about the Juukan Gorge, hindsight is such a beautiful thing when you know. But at the time, they could have said, like, we understand this is a really important site. What's 130 million, you know, or whatever it was worth, that particular area.
I know.
Or they could have been like, we'll take 70% of the area away, from where the actual gorge was. We'll go a bit more back this way, if they had to, and we'll preserve that area. Or let's just not touch it. Like, there's so many things they could have done. Like they say, shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but I think now they realise they stuffed up. And I know something like that ain't going to happen again, especially within Rio. But it's the other companies too that we got to also be mindful of, because remember what the general public have to realise. Yeah, Rio did the deed, but it's the government that approved it.
Yeah.
They were well within their legal rights to do what they did, you know?
Yeah, that's why no one's prosecuted.
But morally, we know what they did was wrong. And that's where we've got to start making people and companies and our own government, as voters, accountable. And say, look, make some real changes here, otherwise we'll get someone else to run this place. That's what we can do as the average voter, you know? That's the power we hold.
Yeah.
Let's make the governments who have created these laws and streamlined all these things that happened in the past accountable, and actually do something really positive.
The other act that stands out is the Land Administration Act, that's also on the cusp of changing, and it's one of the benefits of it is that it's claiming that it'll enable many more possibilities for native title holders. Is that something that is present for people here that you're looking forward to, or what's the feeling there?
I actually haven't had a look at it yet, but I think as native title groups, there's so much more power we need to have in terms of what goes on on country. I've been on the board of my native title body, and it's a struggle. It's been a struggle in the past, because we're going up against a system where we don't hold the keys, we don't hold the power, and you're trying to work within that, and it just makes things really, really hard when you're negotiating, when you're trying to look after country, all these type of things. It's really difficult. So the more power that can come back in the hands of traditional owners in our PBCs, prescribed body corporates, native title entities, that can only be a good thing.
I think, again, for all of us, because then you're getting a genuine, mutual learning thing going on, as opposed to sitting here high and mighty on the other side of the fence, knowing that you're captive to me ultimately. Like it always has been since the Europeans arrived. Yeah,
and that's the problem. Like, we've always been spoken at. We've never been on equal playing field in any way, including in legislation. And that has to change. We're the first people of this land. Our ancestry goes back thousands and thousands of years. Yet we're the ones who were the last ones to know about this, last ones to be spoken to about things, and the last ones to be able to do anything about anything. And that needs to change. Because you can't call us First Nations if we're not never first in anything.
How would you describe the vision for this place that you carry within yourself?
I think Murujuga, and specifically Murujuga, I think has a lot of potential to be like a place where people will come and learn about, and it'll help them want to learn more about other places. People go to Uluru, but they go to Uluru, it's a cultural place, spiritual place. But some people, they just go there because it's just a big rock, And, they used to climb the rock, for example. The people from there said, no, don't climb it. It's not only dangerous, our culture says you're not supposed to climb it, Yet here are the traditional owners who have ownership over that land, and people going against their wishes. And then they finally close it down, and everyone kicked up a big stink about it. But it's like, it's better for the place, and people are realising that now. And I just think that Murujuga can become a place of spiritual significance for people, because if they learn properly about the history of this area, they know that the song lines all come from here. And if you want to know this story, that story about this and that connects in different parts of Australia, you got to come here to learn them, because this is where they begin, you know. And like our desert neighbours, whom we go out and practice our law and culture with, our law time, you know, and put our boys through initiation and vice versa. These are people who live thousands and thousands of kilometres away from the coastline. Half of them never even been here, yet they know this place and they know how special it is, you know? And because they're given that education. And that's what I want the rest of Australia and the world to have. It's like, let's look after country and culture, because country and culture go together. They're not separate.
All right, mate. It's been brilliant chatting. Let's go with that music question.
Okay.
What's a piece of music that's been significant to you?
My favourite music, my favourite band, I suppose, is Metallica. Right? I just love their music. I think they're just great storytellers, and they're not singing about country or anything like that. But what I like is that they're great at storytelling. Their stories in their songs, people listen to their songs and they think it's just all rah 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 rah, you know, like real. But they've got genuine stories in there.
Mate, epics, they're like mythological epics
Yes,
in some cases.
absolutely.
Like 6-7 minute songs.
Yep.
Amazing film clips in some instances as well. Yeah.
You know, that's what I love, and it just reminds me of who I am. Like, I'm a storyteller. I tell the story of the land to people, you know, and I love doing that. And I think that's why I like their music, because they tell great stories in a very heavy metal way.
Is there a particular song that stood out over the journey?
I love Creeping Death, because I also grew up in the church. I don't classify myself as a churchgoer, Christian or anything like that. But I did grow up in the church, and in the Old Testament they got some amazing stories, you know, in the Bible. But one of my favourites is the Emancipation. So this Creeping Death, Metallica's song Creeping Death, is basically the story of Moses and freeing his people. But more specifically, it's about the angel of death coming in to kill all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians as punishment for not releasing the Hebrew people. That's what it's about. And so the Creeping Death is saying that no matter how powerful you think you are or how good you think you are, and whether you're rich or not, God doesn't care. And from an Aboriginal point of view, doesn't matter who you are, how good you are, how big you think you are, and where you fit in the scale of the world, God, whom we call Mingala, doesn't care who you are. Punish you either way. And that's why we have to look after country, because we know from a spiritual level that if we don't take care of country will punish us and harm us and everybody, and it's our responsibility to look after country. So that's why I like that song.
Brilliant, mate. Terrific story. Always glad I ask. Power to you, Clinton. It's been brilliant to chat. Thanks for having me here and speaking with me.
No worries, mate.
That was Nyalama man Clinton Walker. For more on Clinton, Nyaranga tours and the incredible Murujuga, see the links in our program details. Thanks to the generous supporters who've helped make this episode possible. If you too value what you hear, please help keep the Regeneration going by joining this wonderful community of listeners. Just head to the website via the show notes, regeneration.com/support. Thanks as always. The music you're hearing is Stones and Bones by Owls of the Swamp. My name's Anthony James. Thanks for listening.